So it's all to play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. I'm delighted to be chatting to you here on this Easter Sunday. It's Easter Sunday here when I will be talking to you guys. I know I'd already promised you guys a Steven Gerrard a review of every single game that he's managed us this year, and I've put a lot of work into a diagram and things that I want to go through with you on that, but that's going to have to wait until tomorrow. What I want to do is I want to kick off something that I like doing. And I know other people aren't going to like this, and I know other people are going to think this is a waste of time, but I really like scouting players. I like to see how they fit into formations, into styles. Predominantly, I'm going to see how they fit into our current style. And this would probably make more sense after we look at how Steven Gerrard has lined up the team in his 2021 games that he's managed for Aston Villa Football Club so far. But I wanted to talk today. I want to kick off the scouting series that I will be doing in regards to the transfer window. Now, before I do this, I completely understand some of these are going to be pie in the sky. I completely understand people are going to want to comment underneath and say, this will never happen. Villa are going to just bring Carlos Sanchez out of retirement if he's retired and just play him. Villa can't attract anyone. You know, who would want to come to a team that's finishing mid-table in the Premier League? If that's your view, that's absolutely 100% fine. I can't disagree with you. Reason being is because I can't say that this guy is absolutely 100% going to sign for us. But what I do know is that we are going to be looking for a defensive midfielder. And I want to kind of look and see who's out there, who we could sign. This is more an exercise in me doing something I really, really like, which is scouting, which is looking at the data, looking at games that they've played, trying to see if they would actually fit in. You know, a lot of you guys would have seen some of these things I've done before. I'm not 100% sure that Yves Bissouma is going to be the savior of this football team if he was to come in and to join. Yes, he's a very good footballer, don't get me wrong. But if we're going to get him to come in to expect him to play the absolute 100% number 6 role that I think this team needs, well, then maybe we may not be buying somebody that I think that may fit that role. I'm 100% okay with somebody thinking this is a pie in the sky transfer stuff. I really don't mind. That's not what I'm here for. I'm not here to convince you that this guy is the perfect person. Some of you will love this. Some of you won't. I want to hear all your comments, though. All comments are valid. But as I say, this is not me saying we're going to 100% sign any player. We've been linked with Geoffrey Kondogbia recently. It seemed to be a very, very strong link, which said that we're very confident of getting it over the line. And I think that it's fair to say that if a defensive midfielder is going to be on our radar, considering that we don't currently have one at the club other than Marvelous Nakamba. And to be honest with you, Marvelous Nakamba may not be, like, he's not at the level of somebody like a Geoffrey Kondogbia or some of the names that we've been mentioned, that we hope we will be mentioned with over the course of the coming transfer window. Not to say that Marvelous Nakamba isn't going to come back and do a fantastic job, but I think you guys know what I'm saying. You know, we're going to be upgrading some positions in this transfer window, and I'm going to take a look at some of the people I think will be quite beneficial to come in. It's funny because I was doing this Geoffrey Kondogbia piece anyway, before the news broke on Thursday or Friday that we were actually interested in him. Now, could it be a spurious link whereby they watched him kick Man City up and down the field over the last 2 legs of their Champions League game? Could be a spurious link in regards to that. But there could be something in it as well. And let's take a look at it. Like, there's no harm to take a look and see what he brings, what he's done, what his numbers say, and what the observations on him are. So we are going to do that. I think actually a good place to start is probably the Manchester City game, and we will take a look at some still shots. I was going to do a full analysis of it, but I was terrified of the litigious nature of some teams with regards to using video footage on YouTube, even though the YouTube guidelines do say that you can use it for critical analysis and pieces like that. I would imagine that this will be taken down if I was to use any video footage. If anybody can confirm or deny that, that would be fantastic. I have reached out to YouTube to see if I can use some video to do video analysis on players and on games, and I haven't received anything back. So I have been nice enough to ask to see, are you going to shut down my channel if I start using video stuff for critical analysis or for appraisal, which it says within their terms and conditions you can do, but I haven't received anything back. And to be honest with you, I don't want to get shadow banned. I don't want anything like that for copyright infringement. So I'm just not going to use the video until I find out for sure. But if anybody out there does know, let me know, because it would make these scouting sessions an awful lot more interesting if we could do that. So Geoffrey Kondogbia, who is he? What is he? And where do I think he fits in? As always, I've created a little data sheet on him. So let's take a little look at that. You guys will be familiar with these sheets. Follows the same vein of what I did in the January transfer window. My aim is actually from the 1st of May to try and trot one of these out, or try and trot 3 of these out a week, hopefully building up to one a day through the month of June. It's going to be tough, but I think I'd like to do it because, as I say, this is a hobby for me. I want to up the amount of content that we have out there. Some of you guys will absolutely love it. Some of you guys may not like it, but I think it's interesting to take a look at some of these players. Whether we're linked with them or not, whether they're pie in the sky or not, I think it very much so is interesting to look at them. And the first one we're going to look at to kick it off is Geoffrey Kondogbia. He's a French international. He's played for France 5 times. He has now switched his allegiance to the Central African Republic. He's 6'2", which is very, very much needed within this team. I think we need height in midfield. While we're not short in midfield, we're not giants. Everyone is the same size, realistically, in midfield, bar Coutinho, who's small. But we need somebody who's big, who's a bigger type player in there to even stop those passing lanes. I've said it a couple of times recently. We played Newcastle United. Jonjo Shelvey gave an exhibition playing that low, deep-lying midfielder role. Because of his height, we couldn't get around him. If we had Jonjo Shelvey the day we played against Newcastle, we would have beaten Newcastle. If we had Nemanja Matic when we drew 2-2, or when we played, pretty much if we'd Nemanja Matic every time we played Manchester United this season, we would have beaten Manchester United as opposed to beating them once, losing to them in the FA Cup, and then drawing with them in the league. I think a bit of height, and I think that defensive nous in midfield will go an awful long way within this team. It's not to denigrate Douglas Luiz, considering the fact that Douglas Luiz is a Brazilian international. Douglas Luiz's number 8 is a completely different and altogether better proposition than Douglas Luiz is a 6. All you have to do is look at the game he played against Manchester City this year. He was absolutely phenomenal, and we nearly drew with Manchester City that day. We lost 2-1. We could have drawn 2-2, only for a fantastic save from Ederson. You know, Douglas Luiz in that number 8 role is a completely different player than Douglas Luiz in the 6 role. He's his natural instincts don't lend him to being a good 6. So it's not to denigrate him. It's not to say out with the bathwater, but we don't really have a dedicated defensive midfielder outside Marvelous Nakamba, who's coming back from a nasty injury, and to be honest with you, was in and out of the team prior to that. So are we looking to upgrade the area? We absolutely are, and I think Geoffrey Kondogbia could be somebody that could do that. He's 6'2" frame, he's tall, languid style, and his natural propensity to not want to go forward, I think, is very beneficial. It's something that we will see, I would like to see, should I say, within this team going forward. When we look at the Steven Gerrard games we've played so far, when we have had Marvelous Nakamba, a dedicated defensive midfielder in the team, the shape is completely different to when we don't have him in the team. It's like night and day, and we will see that. And it probably will make more sense when we look at that tomorrow. So if you are watching this today, watch tomorrow. Today will make a small bit more sense after you see tomorrow. Geoffrey Kondogbia is 29 years of age. And a lot of people may raise their eyes and say, oh, he's old, we'll have no sell-on value. And I think we might need to kind of shift our mindset with regards to ages of players that are going to come in this transfer window. It's not to say that we're not going to have any transfer value on them, but I think Steven Gerrard kind of led us into a little secret when he said it, I think, in the pre-match or the pre-match press conference for Spurs about transfers. And he mentioned, you know, that we have the prospects we want to bring through. We kind of already have them in the club at the moment, the likes of young Tim, the likes of Carney, the likes of Aaron Ramsey, who's out on loan, the likes of, you know, you think of all these guys, Kane Kessler-Hayden, Louis Barry. We have a lot of prospects already that are going to come back from their loans and going to knock on the door. And I think what he wants to do is he wants to bring in some proven players now. Not to stifle their movement into the team, but I think that's what we need. I think when we're looking at maybe overhauling the squad this season, we're probably looking at taking players out that are already in there and putting new players in there and upgrading the squad that kind of a way. Who comes out and who goes in, I don't know. That's open for discussion. I'm sure everybody has their own views on that. So when we're looking at the ages of players, Geoffrey Kondogbia has just turned 29 years of age on the 15th of February, just gone. So he's 29. He's by no means ancient. He's not. We don't have the Zimmer frame out for him yet. He's a lot of football played, and we can see it underneath here. He's played 213 games as a central defensive midfielder, which for me is a massive, 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 massive plus point. He is a born-bred defensive midfielder. We see he's slotted in at centre back 6 times as well. I think that, to be honest with you, I'm kind of skeptical. I think that 6 is a bit more. I think when he was with Sevilla and he was with Valencia, I think he played a bit more centre back than the statistics actually showed. When we look at him play, specifically in those two teams, and to a lesser degree with Atletico, he does slot in between those two centre halves as a centre, another centre half at times. He doesn't roam too far forward that often. If we look at his heat map to the right hand side there, we see that this season he hasn't done that an awful lot, and that's probably because of the two centre halves that are there. They don't get out of position, and Diego Simeone has been very, very defensive minded so far this season. So we see he kind of plays there towards the left hand side of the field. Koke obviously occupies the right hand side of the field, and they play 2 stoppers in front. Now, can Geoffrey Kondogbia play as the one stopper? He absolutely can. He can play as a single pivot there in that number 6 role. That's really what he played before he came to Sevilla. He's just been able to adapt. And he was brought into Sevilla, to Atletico Madrid. He was brought into Atletico Madrid to replace Thomas Partey. If you remember, Partey left just after the transfer window had closed. There was an offer sheet in. It took quite a while, and Atletico actually had to get special dispensation from UEFA to replace him, and they replaced him with Geoffrey Kondogbia. It was a 13.5 million transfer fee that they paid to Valencia at that time, and I would think if Aston Villa were going to sign somebody like Geoffrey Kondogbia, it wouldn't be much more than that. I think it would be somewhere in between that and maybe the 20 million mark. So number one, we're looking at a player who's done it, who's played a defensive midfielder an awful lot at a very, very high level, capped by France 5 times, don't forget, and has played with some big clubs, played with some really big clubs. He's played with Inter Milan, he's played with Sevilla, he's played with Valencia, he's played with Atletico Madrid. So he's got a lot of Champions League experience. So if you're bringing in somebody like that for 20 million-ish in and around that price mark, I think that it could be good value, even given that he's 29 years of age. So why do I think that he's going to be a good fit for Aston Villa? It's very easy just to say he's a defensive midfielder and we need one. And that's why he's going to be a good fit for Aston Villa. Well, my big thing about Geoffrey Kondogbia is that he's just a true defensive midfielder. And I know, what does that mean? A lot of people are going to say, you're saying that, but it doesn't really mean anything, Neil. And I suppose really it doesn't when you just say that, but it's not really just the position he plays on the field. It's the identity that he leaves in the field. He has no interest in raking a 60-yard pass. No, none whatsoever. Like, sometimes we talk about attacking players and we say he's no interest in defending, but that's all right, because when he gets the ball in an attacking position, he goes nuts and he creates loads of opportunities and chances and he scores goals. So people get a pass like that up at the top of the field because maybe they get something out of their play in an offensive point of view. Geoffrey Kondogbia should get that pass at the back near the defensive side of the field, because he's just a really, really good defensive midfielder. He's not going to blow you away. He's a languid type of player. As I said, he's tall. I think height offers a good offers a good intangible that you can bring, or good tangible, should I say, that you can bring with him into this team, because he immediately becomes the tallest midfielder and one of the tallest players in their team straight away, which is good, which means that it's just something I would like to see. But he's just a very defensive minded player. He's got the ability to cover in defense as well. As I say, that's 6 games. I took that number from Who Scored. I'm not saying that Who Scored are in any way, shape or form incorrect, but I'm sure that if we were to look back at times of games, he's actually probably slotted in as a third centre half. From what I've seen, specifically when he was playing with Inter and with Valencia, he did kind of slot in there a bit in the big games. So I think that number could be a small bit higher. So he does have the opportunity to do that. We look at some of his defensive statistics. He's averaging three and a half tackles per game, which puts him in the 95th percentile. I've spoken recently about pressures. You know, we talked about in the Wolves game, Morgan Sanson had 26 pressures, is the highest amount of pressures of any Aston Villa player in the league this season. I think that's what the number was. But how many of them were successful? How many of them were leading to tackles? How many interceptions did he have? That's the real statistic. The pressures are fine. They show effort. But what actually happens? Are those pressures successful? Is he getting interceptions? Is he getting tackles? And what we can see here is 3.5 tackles is a lot. Like, as I said, it's 95th percentile. There's only 5% of all central defensive midfielders and central midfielders in the top 5 divisions in European football that are tackling more times. They're having successful tackling more times than Geoffrey Kondogbia. Of those, and I don't have it written down here, he's successful with 66% of those, which is in the top 90% as well. Let me just check that, actually, because I should really have written that one in there. Yes, it's 94th. It's the 94th percentile is what it is. So he's winning 2.32 of those 3.5 tackles, which comes in roughly around 66%, 67%, which puts him up in the upper echelons. When he tackles, he wins the ball. What do I want for my defensive midfielders? Yeah, I want them to win the ball. That's what I want them to do. He has, as I say, he's got 2.53 interceptions per 90 minutes per game, which puts him in the top 90%. Top 90% of defensive midfielders. What do I want my midfielders to do? Yeah, I want them to intercept the ball. He's a pressure success rate. We can see there, if we look down through, he rarely gets dribbled past once per game. He puts in 19.9 pressures per game, which isn't the most of any defensive midfielder, which is fine, because I don't want my defensive midfielder being dragged out of position and pressuring absolutely everybody. I want him to hold his position, pressure the right people, but when he does it, to pressure them correctly. So what we can see there is that he does have he comes in at the 63rd percentile, which is still in the upper echelon. It's still what we're talking, almost in the top 2/3 of defensive midfielders and central midfielders within the top 5 leagues in Europe. But where he really makes his money is he's like 75th percentile of the successful pressures at 32.4%. And what does that mean? We look at him in comparison with Douglas Luiz in a moment to see what that means. Aerial success duels, wins 65% of them. 2/3 of balls that drop down on top of him in the air, he wins. That is huge. 94th percentile. We miss that in our team hugely. How many times, like, if you're jumping for a ball, if you're a defensive midfielder or if you're a midfielder at all, and you're jumping for a ball, you're taken out of the game. So if you jump for a ball and somebody wins that flick on, you're completely taken out of the game. You cannot affect the game, the whole play, the whole level of the next phase of play for probably about 30 seconds to a minute. You are done. We're playing with 10 men because you're in the air. And you have to get down, you have to get your bearings, you have to turn around. The ball has gone a million miles away from you, and you have to try and chase back into position again. So if you're jumping for a header, and we've seen it with Ezri Konsa in the 2 headers he's missed recently, we see it in midfield that we don't win an awful lot of headers in midfield. Because if we're in, and that's really detrimental. It's something that's so overlooked. Yeah, we want people jumping to contest for the ball in the air. If you're in the air, you're no good to us. Because unless you're going to jump and win the ball, like, you should really stay on your feet. Let somebody win that ball and you know, get back into position. Obviously, it's not going to work like that in a lot of instances. We see the Harry Kane goal, or the Harry Kane flick onto Son for Son's second goal or third goal, I think it was. Konsa didn't jump with him, but he engaged with him. If Konsa had stayed 10 yards back instead of running towards him, maybe there's someone there. But if you've got Geoffrey Kondogbia dropping back into those areas to win those aerial balls, or to engage with Harry Kane for those aerial balls, at 6'2", he's in a better position to win that, and we still have men behind us in that instance. And of course, if you've got somebody who's winning 65.1%, which puts him in the top 94th percentile of all defensive midfielders, well, then you know you can be pretty confident that when he puts his head up there in a duel in the air with somebody else, he's probably going to win it. Big plus points for me, huge plus points. When we look at some of his possession stats, yeah, they're not going to blow you away. What did I say earlier on? He's not going to rake you a 60-yard pass, drop it on somebody's foot out by the byline, or drop it into over the top to Ali Watkins to run onto and not break stride and slot it in the back end. He's not going to do that. But then again, I don't want him to do that. That's what John McGinn's for. That's what maybe Douglas Luiz, Jacob Ramsey, Coutinho, that's what they're for. You know, horses for courses here. I think everybody's trying to do the same job in midfield, and that's where we're coming unstuck an awful lot in games. He doesn't attempt an awful lot of passes. We can see there at 46.92 passes per game. He comes in the 39th percentile, which, you know, that means there's 61% of midfielders doing more. His pass completion rate is pretty okay. His pass completion rate, 86.7%. You know, I'll take that every day of the week. He doesn't give away the ball an awful lot. Doesn't have an awful lot of progressive passes. God be with the days when George Boateng was criticised for being a crab, passing the ball sideways. We'd kill for that now. You know, keeping control of the ball, making sure that we have a good defensive midfielder. I'm not saying that Geoffrey Kondogbia is a complete another crab, but he only passes the ball forward 3.4 times per game, which is quite low. And he doesn't pass it forward for for a great amount. He comes in at 200 yards at progressive pass distance per game. Where he makes his money is passes under pressure. You can see it here, 79%. So 9.78 passes per game will be under pressure. And that stands to reason because a lot of players, a lot of teams want to push up on that defensive midfielder. He's comfortable under pressure. He's not going to hit that 60-yard pass, but he's comfortable under pressure. And we can see there that he's in the top, 79, 80 percentile of all those midfielders. That's really good to see. That gives me confidence in him. The fact that he can still play his way out of trouble, get the ball to McGinn, get the ball to Jacob Ramsey, get the ball to Douglas Luiz, get the ball to Coutinho, get the ball to our two fullbacks. You know, that's what we need him in there. That steadying pivot force inside there. Doesn't create a lot of shot creating actions, but look at his dribbles. He doesn't dribble an awful lot, but when he does, you can see by his big frame, he's not going to be knocked off the ball. He's a languid style. Not every single long, languid player needs to be kind of held up against Paul Pogba. But when Paul Pogba runs with the ball, he always looks like he never looks like he's in control of it. And that's probably because he's got really long legs. Condogbia has those long legs as well. He looked like he's not really in control of it. But look, the statistics don't lie. Over the last 365 days, he's had an 80% almost an 80% successful dribble rate, which is quite good. And we will see that in comparison to our current incumbent in the position as we go forward into the next few slides. Another thing I want to say as well is he holds his position really, really well. He tracks in play as opposed to following the ball around the place. So he holds his position and he anticipates, which we don't see an awful lot of in our midfield at the moment. In our midfield, it's very much follow the play. It works to some degree, but if all three people are following the play, then there's space in other parts of the field. And we see that. We see overloads in our fullbacks. We saw it in the first goal that Spurs scored at the weekend. We saw Matt Doherty was just literally out in the left-hand side in his own. He had all the free space when Harry Kane takes that shot and it hits Matty Cash. It could have dropped to him and he had all the space in the world. Drops it on, Son finishes it. You know, so we want to, structure-wise, our midfield doesn't work because it's follow the play and we don't have any specific natural number 6 in there that will help. Geoffrey Kondogbia is a natural number 6 and that will help. And let's take a look at him in comparison to Douglas Luiz. So as you guys will know, I've done this before. This is not me denigrating Douglas Luiz. This is me showing you where the value of somebody like a Geoffrey Kondogbia comes into the play and why we might be scouting him. So there's a lot of green on the left-hand side there. Green means he's better in certain areas than Douglas Luiz. And I think if we look at the defensive point of view, he's better across the board. He has way more interceptions. He's way more tackles per game. He's dribbled past less. He executes in and around the same amount of pressures as Douglas Luiz per game. So we're not losing anything in what Douglas Luiz does well in the pressure game. I don't know why I did the air quotes there, but you know what I mean. Douglas Luiz is known for somebody that pressures the ball and gets in around the play. Condogbia does it better. And guess what he does? He affects the game more because he gets more interceptions and tackles in there. Look at the aerial dual success piece. Massive. What did I say? If Douglas Luiz is in the air and he's not winning those, yes, he wins 1 in every 2, but it's that one that he's not winning that opens up our defense. You know, if you're winning 2 out of 3, it's better than winning 1 out of 2. And that's not opinion, that's counting. Pressure success rate, you see there that he's got a better pressure success. He pressures more, he's got a better successful pressure rate. He fouls less than Douglas Luiz. Now, I know this is only based on 365 days, but still, if he can come in here and implement this within Aston Villa Football Club, we've a better defensive midfielder. Yeah, we look at the possession stats. He attempts less passes. He completes more passes, which is interesting. He's got a better pass completion rate, which is once again is really good to see. Doesn't progress the ball forward as much. But look at the passes under pressure. Douglas Luiz doesn't make passes under pressure. He isn't as comfortable. There's a big drop off there. There's a difference of over 3 per game. So if we've got somebody who's able to make 3 extra passes under pressure and pass them well and complete those passes, I think that's drawing their players out of position a small bit more. It's lessening the amount of counterattacks we have to see, and it's also allowing us to build a better structure in midfield. And lastly, look at the successful dribble rate. Douglas Luiz is one of the worst dribblers of the ball in European football from the defensive midfielder position. He's only successful 47.2% of the time. So if we're unsuccessful in a dribble, what happens? Our attack breaks down. We have to counterattack, or we have to defend again. They get an opportunity to counterattack. If we can stop unsuccessful dribbles with a Geoffrey Kondogbia, that means we're less filtering back to try and get back to defend mode, putting our defense under pressure, and we're more into counterattack mode. The statistics don't lie. And yes, this is based around better players around him, different systems. It doesn't take into account that. Completely understand. But if this can be replicated from what Geoffrey Kondogbia does well and has done well for 213 games as essential defensive midfielder, realistically, 72 games coming off the bench as well, as opposed to 109 games for Douglas Luiz and 32 games coming off the bench. Not all of those 109 games has he played, stellar in. And same for Geoffrey Kondogbia. He's had some good games, he's had some bad games. But if you can replicate this in an Aston Villa in a team for Aston Villa Football Club, well, then we're in a way better position. We just are. Numbers don't lie. So let's take a little look at some of the. Oh, I didn't do this. There we go. This is what I wanted to look at. I was going to look at some of the advanced defensive statistics for Geoffrey Kondogbia. We will come back to that should we have any more concrete links. So I do apologize about that slide. So here's a bit of a mealy-mouthed slide on his play against Manchester City. And look, to be honest with you, I was kind of wondering whether I would bother putting this in at all, because there's some info that we can garner from this, but I'd love to have been able to show the actual game and to show where he affected it in certain areas. So all I can do really is show you the still shots here, and look the first one that we can see here. Man City are parked in the attacking third. They're trying to make what's almost a customary Manchester City attack here. They're trying to overload here on the left hand side. We can see we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people on the left hand side. We've got somebody over here. I can't quite make out who that is at this moment in time, but they've got a player here. We've got Bernardo Silva. I think Silva has the ball here, and he's shaping as if he's either going to take a shot or play the ball out here. But what we know he really wants to do here is slide the ball down in between these two central midfielders, of which one is Condogbia, and to bring a ball down the side here so we can pile in, so that Man City can pile into the box. That's what they do. And they do it really well. That's Sterling coming off the shoulder there of Condogbia. But what we can see is Condogbia is okay to let him go. And he knows he's got the presence of mind that he can let him go because he has a bank of 3 here behind him. And that's what Aston Villa want. That's what we need to start doing if we're going to start defending on our box. So what Condogbia does in this instance actually is he pressures the ball player. And the ball player Silva does try and make this pass here, and but he's able to get out to it. He's able to put pressure on him, and he is able to affect the play in this instance. So this is something that Man City do really well. Man City's left-hand side is usually overloaded. They usually put a lot of people down that left-hand side, and then look at all the space that they have over here. It's a lot of the things that Man City do isn't rocket science. They just have really, really good players. Second piece here is what I wanted to show here is, and this is probably something that, in a way, I would criticize him for. He's married to that position within the field at times, and look where he defends. But I like it in a way that you can structure a team around this. Like, nothing comes from this second still shot here. The ball goes out to the left hand side, all right, and then there's I think a cross comes in, but nothing comes of it. But he's married to this position of protecting the D. When we came back after Project Restart, Douglas Luiz did a brilliant job of doing that. It really strengthened us up. Marvelous Nakamba did a brilliant job of doing that at the start of Steven Gerrard's reign. It really strengthens us if we protect that D. And what it is getting to that D first is what he does, as opposed to reactionary filing back to get to that D. He gets there first, if that makes sense. And to me, that's really, really impressive. It's something we need. Last little picture that I have here, there were parts of the game whereby he was tasked with being a spy for Kevin De Bruyne. He's here beside him. Throughout this course of play, he actually follows him a decent amount. He follows him within what is clearly marked as his defensive zone. He follows him. He doesn't give him an inch. What we can see here is that Manchester City player and Atletico player are battling for the ball down in the corner. Man City players are coming around it. This is where, if Man City win this, they come alive around the box. You don't want De Bruyne getting the ball around the box. We just know historically he's brilliant. Condogbia is spying on him already. So Condogbia, there's a lot of things here. He could be drawn towards the man that's down here. There's a man down here beside this other Atletico player. He could be drawn to get closer there, but he's not. He's spying on Kevin De Bruyne, and I like that. It shows positional discipline. And that's what we need from a defensive midfielder, positional discipline. On the right-hand side here, I've just shown average positional maps of where Atletico Madrid were versus Manchester City at the start, and then where Aston Villa versus West Ham, which is a game I thought we could have won, but I think that, we kind of got a small bit gung-ho in our approach. And lastly, we have the one here against Spurs as well. So we can see here number 4 is Kondogbia. And Kondogbia is he just kind of marshals that midfield area. We can see the midfield is a lot flatter. It's to be honest with you, for me, it's probably what Steven Gerrard wants to play here with these two fullbacks not as high up. But we can see here that the reason that I wanted to show this is that the two centre halves are kind of well denoted here, and we can see them as they're clearly kind of they're well spaced, and they're clearly given that defensive role of, okay, the two of you are going to stay back as much, but they do have all this bank in front of them, so it's a really good defensive setup. We see here our defensive setup against West Ham, which I thought was pretty decent. We have Tyrone Mings, we've got Callum Chambers, we've got Matty Cash, and we have Luka Dean, who are set up as a nice bank. Douglas Luiz takes up a nice position in the West Ham game. I thought there was a lot of opportunity in the West Ham game for us. I thought we controlled a good bit of it. Yes, West Ham beat us, but they didn't beat us until we went to sleep in the last 10-15 minutes. Now, Geoffrey Kondogbia comes in here and he slips in between those two centre halves. I think we're in a very, very much better position than with Douglas Luiz in there. But we can see here where he would fit in within this structure. Against Spurs, we were all together more haphazard. It was a bit mad, Spurs, the way we set up. We can see here Douglas Luiz is given it all the space to patrol around. Very, very difficult for him to do it. Specifically very, very difficult for him to do it when it's not his natural position. I think Geoffrey Kondogbia, who does favour the left-hand side of the field, if this is what we're going to do, if we're going to allow Luka Dean go forward, this is what we're going to do, and Geoffrey Kondogbia does come in and favours the left-hand side of the field, well, then I think that's much better, because we know John McGinn doesn't go as far forward. And we can see it here. John McGinn marshals where Matty Cash should be, and I'm okay with that. We don't get beaten as much on that side. We have beaten a lot on this side. And if Geoffrey Kondogbia can come in here, I think that he's a much better, even where Douglas Luiz is here, if we have Kondogbia, he's back further towards his two centre halves. He kind of owns that area just on the edge of his own centre circle on his side. He owns the front of the D. He can slot in there as regards a third centre half. Douglas Luiz can't really slot in as that third centre half if we need him to. And this is where Condogbia really offers some value to Aston Villa Football Club. So that's really going to do it for the scouting session here. They won't all be as long as this. I'm going to try and keep them to about 20-25 minutes. As I say, I'm fully aware some of you will like this. Some of you will think it's pie in the sky. That's okay too. You know, I'm okay with all your comments. I think Kondogbia is a good player. I think he's a good, solid player. I think he's somebody who could come in and improve us. I know he's not going to be the soup du jour that everybody wants, as Yves Bissouma or Calvin Phillips or, you know, somebody of that ilk that can come in. He's very functional, and I like that we're being linked with a player like him because, you know, he's exactly what we need, and he does exactly what it says in the tin. So Geoffrey Kondogbia of Atletico Madrid, formerly of Valencia, formerly of Inter Milan, formerly of Sevilla, big pedigree teams, big ball player, five caps for France, and currently now talking out for the Central African Republic, but somebody who's played a lot of his life at central defensive midfielder, and somebody that I could see would offer value if he was to come into Aston Villa Football Club. So thanks very much, everybody, for watching. If you did like this, please, I really appreciate it if you give it a thumbs up. It means an awful lot to us to drive the channel. We will be back with a couple of more of these. We'll be back again tomorrow with Steven Gerrard, with a view on how Steven Gerrard has played for us, or played in all the games, how we've played under Steven Gerrard so far. So I really appreciate if you guys could check that out too. Thanks so much. As I say, obviously our audio podcast, I'd really appreciate if you could subscribe on iTunes or on Spotify as well to our audio podcast. We're going to be ramping up production on our audio podcast as well, and I don't want you guys to miss out on anything there too. So I'd really appreciate that. So thanks very much for everything you guys do. Enjoy your day off. Enjoy the weekend at hand, and we will be back very, very soon. And until then, all that's left to say is up the Villa.